Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 799B, and today's date is October 23rd, 2015, and the title of this episode is Putin Warns the U.S. is Provoking a Global War. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. Tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be uploading an interview with Joseph Meyer. If you are on the X22Report.com email alert system, you'll get an email. If you signed up to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel, YouTube should send you an email. If not, you can come right over to YouTube. Just type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to that video. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right. You'll see the video right there. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we're seeing more and more problems with Obamacare. I mean, Obamacare is so bad that every day he has to bail it out with the people's tax money. About 8 or so million people are taking it. The other 40 million that are uninsured don't want it. He has to bring on another 22 million to keep it operational. Premiums are through the roof, even though it's called the Affordable Care Act. Hospitals are going under, and doctors are quitting. So what we're seeing right now is a complete disaster of Obamacare, and we're seeing exchanges completely fold and go bankrupt. And what we're seeing is that the U.S. Affordable Care Act doesn't even check the identification of applicants when they're joining up. They don't even make sure that they're citizens or anything like that. They don't check anything. And according to a Government Accountability Office report, they tested a couple of these marketplaces, and they found that, that people are filling out fictitious applications and failed the initial identity checking process. And they're finding more and more of these people. Now, yesterday we talked about CISA and how it is a dark day for the everyday U.S. citizen. And the current version of CISA, as we know, would allow anyone of many of the federal agencies using the data sharing portal to override what's called the scrubbing process, where they're not going to take your personal information. And they're saying these are your new privacy safeguards in the bill. But what's very interesting about this is that there really are no safeguards. There is no real scrubbing process, because under Section 3, subsection 2, the controls referenced in subsection 2 are the processes for scrubbing private or otherwise unnecessary information from data prior to its sharing. The Section 105 language effectively gives the heads of the FBI, the NSA agency, and other participating federal entities veto power over the data scrubbing process. So what does this mean? They have the ability to say, no, we want all the information. You will not scrub this. And all they have to do is say, just give it to me. That's it. So there are no safeguards. This is a perfect spying apparatus, having the corporations doing it, making the American people believe that it's for your benefit to stop cyber attacks, which is absolutely meaningless, because this information, your personal information, doesn't help stop cyber attacks. Because do you really think the person who's doing the cyber attack just bought from Amazon, just bought from another store, and their information is floating around in there? No. So this is all baloney. This is about tracking people, spying on them, blackmailing them, correlating their data. That's what this is all about. Now, there's another part of CISA which would lower the barrier for U.S. to pursue foreign nationals for cyber crimes. There's an amendment to the CISA bill which will allow U.S. courts to pursue and jail foreign nationals, even if the crimes they commit are against other foreigners on foreign soil. I'll give you an example. The amended law would make it a crime punishable by the U.S. prison time, not merely to clone the credit card or steal the Netflix password of an American citizen, but to take unauthorized information from any American company, no matter where it happens. In other words, if a French national hacks a Spanish national's MasterCard, he or she could be subject to 10 years in U.S. prison under the laws changed by the bill. So the U.S. is going to be the police around the world. They're not going to let countries handle any of this. Almost like the TTP, the TTIP, where they're making every single government change the laws to basically come in line with United States laws. So the United States believes they are the controller of the world, and whatever laws they make apply to everyone across the world. Now, the Electronic Frontier Foundation points out that computer fraud laws that would be broadened by the CISA bill were used to prosecute the late founder of Demand Progress, Aaron Swartz, for downloading articles from JSTOR, the Digital Library of Academic Journals. And they're saying that this is a very slippery slope, and it's very dangerous in what the U.S. government is proposing. Of course it is, because CISA, the USA Freedom Act, the Patriot Act, the Affordable Care Act, the Make You Feel Good Act, whatever they call these things, it is always the opposite. Now, out in Ukraine, remember, Ukraine, this is a puppet government for the United States. And the reason why I bring up Ukraine is because whatever happens there or in Libya or in Yemen with the puppet governments, this reflects back to the United States on how they really want to treat us and what they really want to do. Remember, the United States, right now, we have the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, where a lot of people say that, these no longer exist, but people still refer to them. They do still add some protection. Other countries do not have this. So Ukraine right now, they're setting up a website registry. And they're doing it, of course, to say that we're looking for those sites that have malware, viruses, pornography. They violate copyrights. And this is why we're doing it. Well, they're going to have a registry, and they're going to decide what websites meet whatever criteria they're going to make up. So they could block a website that might speak out about the government. Remember, Poroshenko was just out there the other day telling the TV stations not to show the picture of him shaking Putin's hand because it will give the people the wrong idea, because he's been feeding them with propaganda that Putin is his enemy. And Putin is trying to invade his country. So you can see right now what they're doing. They're setting up a registry, and all websites that don't meet the official story of the government will be on the registry and banned from people. And this is what they want to do here in the United States. This is what they've been striving for. Now, we know that NATO is having their war games, and there is a problem with their war games, because this is their biggest war game in 13 years, and they were practicing in Portugal, bringing hovercrafts and Humvees from the waters onto the beach, and it looks like the Humvees and the hovercrafts got stuck in the sand. And this happened during the training mission. And it all began when 2 hovercrafts were released from the USS Arlington amphibious transport dock. They were unable to make it ashore as planned and managed to do so only on the second attempt. And the Humvees got stuck, and they had to help push them out. And I have a video on the X22Report.com if you'd like to take a look at that. Now, in Afghanistan, they're continually pushing the idea that the Islamic State is in the country. Russia has jumped on board and said, yes, the Islamic State is there, and maybe Russia, with the help of the Afghan government, we should go in there and help them out and push the United States aside. Now, we're seeing this a lot, and Russia is taking advantage of this, where they're saying, you know something, this would be another area where we could help. And countries are looking at Russia saying they're taking care of business. Now, Iraq, as you see, they're asking Russia to come in. Of course, the United States says, listen, if you let Russia in here, you are now the enemy of the United States, because they don't want anyone to see what they're actually doing in these countries, where when I say they're, the United States government central bankers are causing most of the problems. For example, we know the United States is demolishing the infrastructure, even though the Islamic State isn't there. And we know that the Islamic State is bringing in, which is the proxy army for the United States government central bankers, ammunition, weapons, all supplied by the United States. And everyone always scratched their head like, why don't they destroy the routes they're taking and the convoys? Because, they're all over the net, and you see them on the convoys, marching around, and, they're very long, hundreds and hundreds of vehicles. So Russia decided, something? We know where they are. We know how they're bringing it in. Let's get rid of the bridge over the Euphrates River. This will stop the supply lines. And this is exactly what they did. Now, all this time, the U.S. has been in Syria, in Iraq, and instead, they're hitting grain silos. They're hitting power grids, the power infrastructure. They're hitting the oil refineries. And we come to find out that all of these places they're hitting, the Islamic State, is nowhere to be found. It's the everyday Syrian in that area. And this is more proof that, yes, the United States is using the Islamic State as a proxy army. So the Russian forces, the Syrian ground troops, are pushing the Islamic State terrorists back. They have suffered huge losses. They're fleeing to Turkey right now. This is how bad it is getting. So the United States has the Islamic State coming from Iraq into Syria to try to help out. And the United States has to be very careful, because all of these reports of them dropping ammunition, weapons, and everything else to help them, it's coming out. So right now they have to be very, very careful in what they're doing. Now, we know the United States government central bankers, they want to divide the Middle East into Shia, into Sunni, into Kurdish, and get rid of Iraq, Libya, Lebanon, all the rest of Syria, and separate it into these different areas. And Putin is saying, no, the division of Syria is totally unacceptable. This will not happen. This will not resolve the conflict, because the conflict is driven by the United States, not by anything else. Because until the United States pushed the Free Syrian Army, funded them, supplied them with weapons, paid for paid mercenaries to come in, Syria didn't have a problem. Neither did Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen. The problem is the United States. Now, Russia is trying to tamp this whole thing down. They're bringing in the United States, if they will accept, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Syria, all to have talks on what is going on in Syria. And we'll have to watch to see how these talks go. Russia is also trying to work with Jordan to coordinate actions on Syria, just like they did with Iraq. So the question is, why did the U.S. go after the power infrastructure in Aleppo? Well, the Aleppo power plant is a 1,000 megawatt thermal plant, and we can see that this power plant, which is about 25 kilometers east of Aleppo city, supplied electric to parts of the city, and they took it out. Now, they came in, they destroyed it, and now 2 to 3 million people in this area don't have power. And it's going to take a long time for them to rebuild the system. In the meanwhile, they don't have clean water, they don't have electricity, and a lot of the people are leaving this area, moving into Turkey as refugees because they can't live in this area anymore. So they're making life for these people on every side of the war more unbearable, and more people will leave to seek refuge in foreign countries. This is their ultimate plan. Now, the U.S. is pushing the no-fly zone once again. Now, remember, the United States government, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Jordan, UK, Australia, Canada, they were not invited into Syria to help out. These countries invaded a sovereign country, and now they're trying to push a no-fly zone once again. Secretary of State John Kerry is leading the push for a show of force, including a no-fly zone in northern Syria. And what they're going to attempt this time is to block Russia. So what they want to do is they want to set it up and say Russia cannot enter this area. Of course, who are they protecting? Because this no-fly zone is very different from the one they wanted to set up before. So they're going to say, in this area, Russia is not allowed. Now, the Pentagon is saying, well, this is going to be very difficult to do because it's going to cost a lot of money. We're going to need a lot of hardware out there to maintain this. Now, Russia, on the other hand, has created a bubble all over Syria using their jamming system, which basically jams the NATO planes, the U.S. planes, the Israeli planes. They're using their S-500 missile systems to take out anyone that comes into this area. So they created a complete dome over this area, and now the U.S. is trying to keep them out of certain areas so they don't destroy their proxy army. NATO is out there saying, we're very worried about Russia's military in the Mediterranean. They have a lot of ships in there now. Now, the Mediterranean is open to everyone. It's international waters, and the U.S. normally has a lot of ships in this area. But NATO is saying that, we're very worried about Putin's wider strategic plan. And he's coming closer and closer to home of where NATO has its forces. No, they have the ships in this area because they are working with Syria to get rid of terrorism. So they brought in the ships they needed. They're in a certain area which they're allowed to be in, just like the U.S. ships, just like the NATO ships, just like everyone else. And NATO is trying to make this a case where they need more money, they need more military assets, and they're pushing the fear-mongering once again. Now, Putin came out and warned that some nuclear powers seem to believe that there's a way to take the mutually out of mutually assured destruction. That is, Putin warned against the dangers of thinking it's possible to win a nuclear war. And let me just say, the United States government central bankers, they're crazy enough to think that, yeah, we can win this. Because they set up this missile shield, and they think if they strike first, the missile shield will protect the United States from Russia's nuclear missile launches. But it won't. I'm telling you right now, their ballistic missiles have the ability to maneuver in mid-flight. And they can bob and weave, and the missile shield that the U.S. has will not be able to stop these missiles. Secondly, the ballistic missiles will be used to target the missile shields. And no one comes out a winner in nuclear war. And of course, as we know, the U.S. government central bankers, they already have bunkers waiting for them underground. The real loser is going to be the millions of people that are destroyed by these weapons. And Putin is saying, listen, he is warning that global war is headed our way if we do not stop this. And U.S. is continually provoking different nations like Russia, Iran, China, North Korea, to start something. They already had the report saying that these are the bad guys. These are the ones we'll be going after. And he believes, Putin, it's a very dangerous miscalculation, and that one that could end up endangering everyone's lives. And I agree with him completely. That if all goes south for the U.S., they will turn to nuclear weapons. They will use that option because they're ready to kick off World War III. They're provoking the nations. And if it doesn't go well, and remember, they already ran the scenarios, and they can't find one scenario where the U.S. comes out as a winner in normal warfare with Russia and China. And that means they will most likely use nuclear weapons. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.